Don't let this happen to you if you're going down a mountain grade. Notice how I say let happen to you. In other words, it can be preventable. Most of the time, it's preventable. Now, I get it. This guy here, very well, it could have been some kind of a mechanical failure, but I'm pretty sure that it's not. And the reason I know that is because I took preventative measures so that I didn't land up in the same boat as him. And while I was doing that, which you see here, I'm at the brake check area, which is mandatory to stop. And I didn't notice it when I was sitting here, but I noticed this guy going by here after the fact when I went back and checked the footage on my dash cam and matched it up to, well, the scene we see here. So, what went wrong here? Well, what went wrong is that if there was a mechanical failure, he would have missed it because he didn't even check to see. On top of that, he obviously it's the wrong gear going down the mountain, or well, that and going too fast, things like that. And it's probably, I don't know how many miles it is. This is Donner Pass, by the way. I'm not sure how many miles it is to the bottom, but that extra whatever, this guy or what many other people do, 10 mile an hour more or something like that, it doesn't gain you really anything. All it gained you was possibly getting somebody killed or getting yourself killed. I mean, it just goes on and on. I'm looking here and I see that this guy is just standing here with the tires on fire and clueless. These tires they're under pressure, they're on fire, and he's standing right next to him. I don't know. It seems to me that they could blow up. I don't know. It's just one thing after another. The other thing is I noticed that there's multiple people coming with fire extinguishers. This guy here, and then the sheriff that was pulling the boat. I see he's getting his fire extinguisher out of there, and they're heading up. But you notice that this guy doesn't have a fire extinguisher. At least I don't see it here anywhere. And I'm thinking, well, that's the law. When you go in to do DOT, check, you go through the scale, and they're going to do a check on you there. That's one of the things you better show that you have that. And so I'm not sure really what went wrong there, why he didn't have his fire extinguisher. But, for those of you that are just getting into this or thinking about getting into it, yeah, you don't want to mess around with going down a steep grade. I mean, I get it. These new trucks are actually pretty amazing. I know I complained a lot about when I got my automatic and how I wasn't sure about that and I wasn't going to like it. Actually, I like it quite a bit. And one of the things is that the Jake brakes are just amazing. I mean, 80,000 pounds going down the mountain and just holds back wonderfully. Now, I'm comparing this to when I first got into driving, which was back in 2002. And I used to haul smoothbore tanker, which basically a thing like milk, orange juice, cream, like a food grade thing. And they have no baffles inside the tanks whatsoever. Really hard to stop on a grade. Once you get that wave going, you try to hit brakes, you can smoke your brakes so quick you wouldn't even know. And back in that day, I had a long nose Peterbilt, which was cool, but it had a Caterpillar and it had horrible Jake brake. Make lots of noise, really sounds like it's doing something, not doing anything really. And I had to be careful back in the day, really easy going down the mountain, low gears, just no rushing it. Because when that wave would hit that tank, because maybe you don't know it, that wave hits you, and it's like another truck pushing you down the mountain, and you can have full brake, everything's just fine, and then within just a couple of seconds, you can have smoking brakes ready to catch on fire. And so I'm always been really leery about that. But I see guys like these with everything like fully on fire. I realize they've got to be doing something that is really wrong, like going too fast, wrong gear, something. There's just no reason for it with trucks nowadays the way they are. Back when I first started driving, well, actually before I started driving, it was a pretty common sight up where I live at. We have a mountain pass called Siskiyou Summit, and it was super common to see trucks, smoking brakes or on fire, like the one we just looked at. Pretty common. I'd see it often. And I wasn't a truck driver back in the 90s. So I looked at that and thought, why are there so many trucks like nearly catching on fire or smoking brakes? What's the problem? Well, I learned what it was later. going too fast. There was nothing really different going on there. But I'll give them this. Back in the day, Jake brakes weren't as prevalent on vehicles. Back then, a lot of them didn't have them, or they were very ineffective, or, just a lot of different reasons. I know I saw a lot of the double trailers that would be smoking the brakes going down the hill. And there's two different types of braking, and I don't even know if they teach one of them anymore. But back when I first started driving, they had what was, I forget what they call it, but it basically you steadily just hold pressure on the brakes in the right gear, and you never let up on it. Never. You just hold a steady pressure, not hard. It's just lightly braking all the way to the bottom, which I thought was crazy. But that was really common here where I live at. And I didn't want to do that. I did the other method, which is, I guess you'd call it the stabbing, where basically you give it pretty good brake and you bring it down about 5 mile an hour. And then all along, you're in the right gear, by the way. And then it would slowly come back up 5 mile an hour. Let's say you're going 50 down the hill and you'd come up to 55 and then stab it again, not too long, not too hard, but just enough to bring it down that 5 mile an hour and then let it go again. And if you're in the right gear, that works just fine. But the thing about the continuous hold on the brakes, the reason why a lot of these older guys were for that was because that's usually what kept them from catching their brakes on fire, because you can't have fire without oxygen. And what happens is when you hold steady pressure on the brakes, it doesn't let air into where the pads and the drum meet. And so without air, they don't burn up. And what I realized later was that all these fires I was seeing and these brakes burning up, I learned it later. What happens is they'd heat the brakes up, they get them really hot, and then they would put a bunch of brake on and pull over to the side of the road, and then they would stop. Well, the oxygen would just rush in there and just get those things blazing, and that's why they're out there with fire extinguishers and all this. And so the idea of holding it down, basically, yeah, you heated them up, but then when you get to the bottom, there's no plans on stopping, and then you're off the brakes. And they'll be hot, but then they'll cool down once you get down the road. And I've watched it following trucks many times where you see them smoking, and they let up on the brake because they're doing the stabbing method, let's say. And then so they're just smoking like crazy, and then just about the time they quit smoking, they're back on the brakes again because they're in the wrong gear. That's the main reason why. And so basically they're not on fire yet, and then they pull over the side of the road. Or I've seen trucks where they're actually on fire, and I know this sounds crazy, but if you can get it into the right gear, yeah, they may be on fire, but if you keep going, they'll probably go out because they'll cool as you go, as long as you're not doing any more braking. But it nowadays there's really no reason for it, because a lot of these trucks and trailers have disc brakes on them. Not all of them, but a lot of them. And so the braking is just tremendously better. The Jake brakes are super effective, depending on what you're driving. Not everybody has this. So the Jake brakes are just super effective. And if you're smoking the brakes, then you are definitely doing something wrong. So, like I said, if you're getting into this, learn how to brake going down a mountain. Don't be in a hurry. It's not going to gain you enough time. I mean, you have an 80,000-pound vehicle, you lose brakes. Yeah, it would be a lucky situation if only you got killed. But sad thing is what'll happen is you may end up taking multiple cars out on the way down the hill. Totally not worth it. Just take your time and learn how to brake properly off a mountain. So I thought I'd share that with you guys today. And hey, I'll catch you next time.